and I want to get my hip here forward of the stick. Now, not only do I want to get my hip forward of the stick, my right shoulder's also got to go forward, right? So while my lower body will be a little bit more forward than my right, I do want to keep my head some amount back. I still need to work my trail shoulder forward. And this same point, this same drill inside my left ankle is a really nice checkpoint for me to feel, especially if you're a golfer who stays too far back too long, to feel not only my right hip gets forward and turned, but my right shoulder or chest gets forward and turned of that. Again, really, really good compression here with that. Hey guys, Eric here out at the Don Law Golf Academy at Osprey Point Golf Club in Boca Raton, Florida. In today's video, we're going to talk about hitting the ball more solid. Irons, woods, driver, etc. How do you hit the ball more consistently solid and compress the ball better? We all want more of that. I'm going to give you 2 different feels and drills to work on to do just that. Now, before we dive in, I am going to be doing some in-person coaching here in Boca Raton during the winter months. If you'd like to come meet me in person and come hang out and work on your game for a couple hours, I would love to have you. I'll put a link to Acuity Scheduling with the scheduler down in the description down below. Of course, if you can't make it down to Florida, we'd still love to work with you through CogornoGolf.com. We actually are offering some new plans where you can get more frequent feedback beyond our normal once-a-month plan, up to once a week. You can send me in your swing, we'll look at it, give you feedback, build you a practice plan. Of course, you get access to everything like normal, the master classes, the Facebook group if you're on Facebook, everything you need, all the practice routines, guides to take your game to the next level. I would love to work with you. We'll also put Cogorno Golf in the description down below. So hitting the ball more solid, right? When I work with players, I find that a lot of the times, a lot of the videos will do lead side feels or left side feels for me, or right side or trail side feels. And me, growing up and playing, I always look back upon the feels that I really played well with, and they all tend to be right side feels. Now that at times could have been my right foot. I've had some right leg, hip, arm, shoulder, etc. But I'm usually a right side person, and that's more what this video is going to be about. For me to hit the ball solid, right? I've got the ball teed up here, I've got a 7-iron. For me to hit ball first, ground second, compress the ball in the middle of the face, get the shaft lean I'm looking for, I need really 2 things to happen with my right side during the downswing to accomplish that are pretty much non-negotiable. My right side needs to move forward towards the target, and it needs to rotate or turn. My right side needs to move forward towards the target, and it needs to turn. Now that forward towards the target and the turning component, when matched together or mixed together or put together, is what gets my hip and my shoulder forward enough to get my hands forward enough, to get the grip forward enough, to get the shaft forward enough, to get the club to the ball, to hit the ball solid, right? It's all that. It's next to impossible for me to be consistently solid with my contact if my trail hip or my shoulder stay too far back too long. That could be from a lack of forward motion, more with irons, a little less with driver, but lack of forward motion, or the lack of the turning component. Can some players keep those back forever and shove your hands way forward? You can, but I think that's a lot more difficult. I would prefer to see the trail, hip, and shoulder moving more forward, getting your chest more over the ball, really compressing the ball. So there's 2 ways to focus this and 2 main drills we're going to use. The first one is the hip motion. If we key in on the hip motion, a lot of people would be surprised if I drew a line down the right hip of a good golfer to see how far forward that right hip goes. If I use this line, I've got a little stick here angled behind me. You can use a golf bag or anything like that. I've got maybe 2 inches between my right hip and the stick. But if I were to kind of look at this where my hip starts, and I put a stake in the ground here, and I look at my finish position, right? We did the video on how far forward the hips have to move. I mean, look at the space my hip has to cover from where I started to where I finished. What is that, man? That might be 2 feet of space that my hip starts back here, and it needs to get all the way up here and be turned towards the target, right? So if I don't shift forward at all, can I ever get up to here? No, I can turn as much as I want. I never get up to there. If I don't turn at all and I just shift, can I get my right hip up to here? No, I can't, right? I need to turn and shift. So the first thing I like to do to work with players with this is put a stick by their hip and learn how to get the stick off the hip, okay? So if I start with this, and let's actually say I have it pretty much right on my hip, I should, during my backswing, it kind of works in this sort of phase, right? During my takeaway, my right hip should stay roughly the same distance. Okay, so very little movement either way. Maybe a smidge away from the target, but I really would like it to stay right where it's at. Now from the takeaway to the top, I'm gonna start to create a little bit of space. So my right hip is turning away from the target, or I mean turning during the backswing, but my hip is actually starting to move towards the target. Okay, so it's on the takeaway, my hip stays there. From there to the top, my hip turns and actually creates some space. Now from here, my hip's gonna get farther from that object, not a ton, but it's getting farther from that object gradually from an initial shifting motion. So it's on it, shifting, shifting, turning, right? And really the shifting and turning are happening to degrees at the same time, but just to give you a sort of a simple visual there, you really want from the takeaway all the way to your finish to get your right hip farther away from the wall that you started on. And the objective of that is to get the handle forward to consistently hit the ball solid. We know at impact, we want to have the hand somewhere over the left leg or left shoe, so some amount of shaft lean here, right? This would be a 7-iron. And so that's the first starting point I'd like to do. So I'm going to put the stick here. I'm going to stay on it in my takeaway. I'm going to work off of it during my late backswing, early downswing, and then focus on getting my right hip forward up over where my right shoe is. So first things first, let's get off of it and get farther off it. Let's hit one or two. Again, I've got about an inch here. Make sure you put it far enough back, about even with the middle of your hip so you don't hit it with your hands. And I'm going to work my right hip away from the stick. And that's a good solid strike there. A lot of golfers I see, right, and this really, even though it's not meant for it, can fix also some of the backswing issues, right? Where you kind of get a couple things for free. Not only do we want to move more forward during the downswing, but if I said you got to move 2 feet forward during your downswing, well, what if I move 3 inches this way during my backswing? Would that make it easier for me to move forward or harder? Right, that would make it harder. So not only do I get the feedback during the downswing, but I also don't want to hit this on the way back. So I'm going to take my setup, again, create a little bit of space from the takeaway to the top, and then create more space in transition, getting my right hip all the way up over where my left leg is. So we'll do that one more time. And for some of you, just staying inside of that's going to be a big adjustment. Your hips will feel more forward even just during the backswing. Yeah, and that's about as good as I can hit it. And my thought there and what I'm feeling is get my hip about an inch away from it going back, and then get it 3 or 4 inches away from it going down. Get it an inch away from it going back, get it more forward going down. Now, of course, that's just one option. The second way that I like to do this is to flip this, and we can start to talk about the right shoulder, is I take that stick out. If you can see from our videos, it might be nice to have one of these alignment rods handy, right, for all the drills. The second version I would do is I'd put the stick inside my left ankle. Okay, and now for the visual, I'm still feeling my right hip getting farther from that wall, farther from that wall. Now I'm using this as a reference of a wall or a line. I'm trying to get my right hip forward of. So I want my right hip fully turned towards the target and forward of this stick on the ground. And this is a second drill that gives me the same reference point, getting my right side through the ball to hit it more solid. So right hip's forward of the stick and fully turned. And there's another one about as good as I can hit it. Every time I do right side feels, it kind of brings me back to feels that I really like and perform well with on the golf course. So that would be option 2 if you're recording yourself. I would do the first one because that can kind of kill a couple birds with one stone. I don't want to kill birds, but as the phrase goes. And I want to get my hip here forward of the stick. Now, not only do I want to get my hip forward of the stick, my right shoulder's also got to go forward, right? So while my lower body will be a little bit more forward than my right, I do want to keep my head some amount back. I still need to work my trail shoulder forward. And this same point, this same drill inside my left ankle is a really nice checkpoint for me to feel, especially if you're a golfer who stays too far back too long, to feel not only my right hip gets forward and turned, but my right shoulder or chest gets forward and turned of that. Again, really, really good compression here with that. So trail shoulder and my trail hip forward of the stick. Let's go ahead and do one with that. Trail hip and shoulder forward. Yeah, good, and that feels really good for me too. So that's getting the right side through. What I would suggest you do is grab a sand wedge, especially if you've never done this before. I would start with a sand wedge, right? If we were working together and I said, hey, your trail side's not getting through, you need to do that. I would put a stick or object behind your hip. I'd put it, give yourself about an inch, make sure you don't hit it. And I'd say, hey, can you with a sand wedge just hit some 50-yard shots, create an inch on the way back from the takeaway to the top, and create more space. Like imagine this is your wall back here, and you need to be getting yourself away from that wall gradually during the entire downswing. I would start with that first, see how that feels. And as you're doing that, you can always add this stick in here, right? You can double whammy, put a stick in here, put the stick back here, get your right hip away from it, farther away from it, and finish over this stick. And that would be a really nice sort of two-stick way to do this. So that's getting your trail side through. If you guys have any questions about this, as always, leave a comment down below. Hey guys, thanks for watching today's video. If you did like the video, do us a favor, click that like button down below, click subscribe if you haven't, leave a comment down below. The more action we have here, if you want to support the channel, all that action really helps us, helps YouTube spread our videos around. I would really appreciate if you guys were able to do that. If you guys do like these YouTube style videos, we'll put a card on the screen. You could go ahead and click that, watch a similar video to this one. If you do want to work with me, like I said, we did add some new coaching options. I would go check that out. Click the logo, that'll take you to cogornogolf.com. Would love to see you there.